Yeah, very good afternoon, everyone and all. Welcome to the second day, session 6 of the Atal workshop, Atal Faculty Development Program on Sparse Signal Processing and its applications. So, this is session 6. The topic is smart antenna. The session goes from 2:30 to 4:30, and the expert who is going to deliver this talk is Professor M.V.S.N. Sharma. He is the present director of Triple Tirchi and the former professor of NIT Warangal. So I'll give a brief introduction of Professor M.V.S. Sharma sir, and after that we will continue our session. At present, Professor M.V.S. Sharma sir is acting as has taken the charge of director of Triple Tirchi. He has taken the charge on 15th March 2019. He played a key role in establishing the Institute Tripartite Tirchi, which is established under public and private partnership, which has made basic objective to set up as a model of education. The number of students produced would be small, but the impact that they create would be great, which is the main slogan of Tripartite Tirchi, for which Professor M.V.S. Sharma sir is the director. So, as a director, he has many achievements. One few achievements I will try to display it over here. On 4th June, the institute has started from permanent campus in Tirchi, and before that it worked in temporary campuses. And as a founding director, Professor M.V.S. Sharma sir played a key role in establishing the Tripartite Tirchi Institute. And here are the few buildings that got constructed over there at Tirchi. This is the main building that is being constructed, and you can able to see the boys hostel also that was almost completed. Even the mess block is also completed under the directorship of Professor M.V.S. Sharma at Tripartite Tirchi. Under his directorship, even the first convocation was also completed, and you can able to see the photo of the first convocation over here on the screen. If you come back to the education, Professor M.V.S. Sharma sir has completed his Bachelor of Engineering from JNTU Karnataka campus in the year 1984. Later on, he did MTech and PhD both from IIT Kharagpur in the years 1985 and 92. Work experience, he has a vast, at more than 35 years of experience. He started his career in the year 1986 as he worked in Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai, during the session 1986 to 1987, and later on he engaged with REC Warangal. Earlier it is called as REC Warangal, and now it has been changed to NIT Warangal. He worked there at different various positions. At present, he is the professor HAG at NIT Warangal. He served as the head of the Department of ECE 2 times at NIT Warangal. The first session at September 2006 to 2009, and during this session I joined as a PhD student under his headship at the Department of ECE and NIT Warangal. I am very fortunate to be as your student, sir. I always thankful to you for choosing me as one of your PhD scholar from the department in the institute, sir. And the second time also he has done the PhD, he has done the head of the department in the year 2013 February to 15 February. In addition to the head of the department, he also served as the Dean Academic Affairs of NIT Warangal during 2016 to 2017. His research expertise includes wireless sensor networks, numerical electromagnetics, antenna arrays, and little radar signal processing. And he only suggested me to work in the radar signal processing, and once again I should thankful to him. Achievements: he is the best research award of NIT Warangal of the year 2016. Under his guidance, 6 students were awarded with a doctoral degrees, and he is the first professor who guided the PhD scholar. The first PhD scholar from NIT Warangal ECE department is under the guidance of Professor M.V.S. Sharma sir. Even the full-time scholar and the part-time scholar both were from Professor M.V.S. Sharma. He has almost 90 publications in various reputed international and national journals, and even the conferences also. He visited USA, UK, Malaysia, Mauritius, and even more countries to present different conference papers, and has taken up some assignments over there. He delivered guest lectures in various international universities and chaired sessions at a different international conference. The photograph which you are seeing now is one of the guest talk that he has been delivered in a very foreign university. He has been associated with many prestigious missile projects, which is of defense, government of India. He is associated with many training programs for the working professionals in ECIL and DRDO. He coordinated the GAN program at NIT Warangal. Under community service, he conducted several IT training programs for police personnel, surveying staff, and rural girls with the tech funds. He has been a reviewer for several reputed national and international journals and conferences. And in addition to this, he is the chief investigator for the Electronics and ICT Academy, which many of us know, which is set up at NIT Warangal by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India at New Delhi. This is for the improvement of employability of engineering graduates through faculty training. The academy successfully conducted more than 250 FPPs and trained almost 12,000 faculty members in a short span of 3.5 years from July 2015 onwards during his tenure at NIT Warangal. Professional memberships, he has memberships in several professional bodies such as Life Member of Society of EMC Engineers, Member of IEEE, Fellow of Institution of Engineers. So with this brief background, I would like to invite, we are very fortunate to have you over here, sir. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being part of this session, sir. I welcome Professor NVS Sarma to start his lecture, and I request all the participants to turn on their mics and welcome Professor NVS Sarma, sir, with a big round of applause. Thank you so much, sir. Now we can start the session.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kishore. I always feel proud with all your achievements so far, and yes, and thank you for all your nice words, and thank you all for joining on an afternoon session, 2:30 on a holiday, and I appreciate your interest to learn new things and other things. Yeah, my topic is smart antennas. Okay, and let me see. Yeah, and as many people might have told you already, signal processing and antennas people can go together because everything works on similar lines. Okay, antenna array as well as a filter which works on signal processing, okay, work on complementary nature. In antenna array, you will have several antennas working together, and the mutual interaction is the problem between the antennas. They should work independently. While in a filter, you will have several filter taps. The mutual interaction is the one which is encouraged, and you have to get the best performance by mutual interaction. So exactly complementary nature they have, and general principles are same. So please remember, antenna people and signal processing people are more or less one and the same. Only thing is which parameter is being optimized must be, okay, confidently known. So whatever techniques you people are using for reducing the noise or removing the unnecessary signal components and many other things, whatever you do, the antenna people also do on a similar lines. Only difference is that the time and frequency are the x-axis for you in most of the cases. You may have time domain filter or frequency domain filters. We have the angle as the x-axis for our graphs. The response functions and all those things, whatever we do, are the physical angles surrounding the antenna, either in the horizontal plane or in the vertical plane. In some cases, in both the planes, we take into account. So in that case, antenna can also be considered as a spatial filter. It filters out spatially, okay. In angle domain, it will be doing the filtering job, whatever you are expecting as per your time domain or frequency domain filter concepts. But more or less, everything works on the same lines. So there are a number of good books in the old generations itself on these aspects. Okay, GL Matha is a very good book on these aspects. He'll give a comparison how the antenna array will be working, how a filter tap, number of filter taps you put in a filter, how do they work and what is the interrelationship between them, how you can design one from the other. These sort of things are discussed in the GL Mathai's book, which is considered as the Bible for filters. Okay. The second point is, most of the people in digital signal processing, we say digital and all those things. Okay. But there was earlier analog signal processing. Long ago, people who are using analog domain for signal processing applications. But as you know, in digital, you have better control and easy way of implementation. Everybody switched over. But please remember, there was analog signal processing, and radar people were the first to use this analog signal processing for a long time to identify certain specific targets and many other aspects of the radar systems. So please don't say there was no analog and it was always digital only. Okay, in some interviews and other places, we see signal processing people answering like this. Okay, the next point which I would like to bring it to your notice is that the antenna people, okay, are going at the same rate as like signal processing people are coming out with new ideas. There is so much creativity, so much novelty that is always possible. So don't think that whatever you studied 20 years ago, 15 years ago and all that antenna is same, like only dipole is there, or Yagi Uda is another antenna, and parabolic dish is the only third type of antenna, and the whole world is only those three antennas. Because many people I observe, those who are from signal processing or some other similar areas, okay, asking antenna people questions on these aspects only. But antenna field also is very much fast growing, and hundreds of varieties of things are happening in terms of materials, in terms of other characteristics, in terms of this signal behavior also. Okay. And so let us go into the smart antennas and try to understand what are the special features and other things. This presentation is taken actually from my PhD student's work who has done on the smart antennas using LMS and RLS and all these sort of different algorithms, and we hybridized them with some special things, okay, which I am going to discuss. So if the slides are good, please thank my student Dr. A.P. Rao. If there are any issues, please bring it to my notice. And this presentation has already been shared with your coordinator, Dr. Kishore Kumar. So he will definitely make it available to you. Okay. But in a hurry, I made it. So somewhere there may be some disturbance here and there in terms of the sequence of the slides. Please don't bear. Okay. Please bear with me for such simple mistakes. Because of my time pressure, I might have done some mistakes here and there. But generally, the content is important for you, as I understand, because in an FDP. So let's go by that. And yeah, is a slide advanced, Dr. Kishore?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you are able to see the second slide, contents?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so these are all the contents what we are going to have. So as a teacher, I start with what is an antenna first, and then go to the smart antenna thing.
Sorry for interrupting, sir. Better if it is in a full screen mode, presentation mode.
Presentation mode is not working.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay. Go ahead.
Just a minute. We'll try that, no problem. Is it advanced?
Yes, sir.
Oh, then no problem. In some other case, there was a problem. Right. Yeah. As usual, what is an antenna? Many of you must be teaching in your class also. An antenna is basically a device which converts. Can somebody add the words? Antenna is a device which converts what? Electric voltage, current, etc. into electromagnetic waves or E and H fields. Like this, people will be talking of. They're all right, but there is another one which is equally important. Can somebody guess? Another type of definition for antenna? People may be sleeping. That's why I just wanted to put one question.
No, sir. Guessing, sir.
Yeah. Please speak out a bit louder.
Antenna is a transducer.
Antenna is
a transducer.
Yeah, is a transducer. Transducer for what?
Converting a signal of one form to another form.
What form to what form, please? Yes, you are right. Yeah, please. What form to what form, please?
Electrical signal to magnetic radiation.
Okay. That is the simplest way, easiest, a layman's way of thinking. any more slightly more technical way of giving information?
Directs the signal to a certain direction. The electric signal to the some direction.
Sir, antenna is just a radiator.
Okay. Is a radiator or something else also? It is a receiver also, no? Gentlemen, am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
no,
Yes, sir.
no problem, no problem. Yeah, the other thing what he wants to say is from a directed to undirected, like what we don't say exactly like that. From guided medium to open space. If you want to transfer the electromagnetic waves, antenna is an interface. Okay, from two-wire line or a coaxial cable, when you are sending the signal, you connect it to a device, then the signal can be sent into free space in the surroundings. The vice versa is also possible. From the surrounding space, it can collect the signal and give it to an output. Okay, wired medium, a copper medium, maybe a coaxial cable or a two-wire line or something else. Am I right? These are all our engineers' way of doing things. Physicists also talk about it. Does anybody know how they define an antenna? Physics people, how do they define? Can you guess? See, when you are applying a signal to this antenna, like a dipole or whatever I am showing you, okay, the electrons will be passing, is it not? The current will be given to the antenna. So electrons will be flowing through. But what happens after that? When it radiates into it, where are the electrons? Electrons are converted into photons. It converts electrons to photons or vice versa. In the receiving mode, the surrounding electromagnetic energy carried by the photons will be converted into or induced as electrons, and then it will be giving the output signal. Okay, so physicists talk about it as a converter of electrons to photons or vice versa. Okay, so this is one thing, and there are varieties of antennas, as I was telling you right from the beginning. The first one which you are seeing on the left top is a simple dipole type of thing. The second one is on the one which you are seeing on the towers. These are not the dipoles, please. They are crossed slots. Most of the times we will use crossed slots for the base station antennas. And the third one, what you are seeing is the dish antenna. Not necessarily one antenna. There are several dish antennas which are being used as a single element. Like when your digital filters and other things, you will have number of taps. Is it not? 5 or 6 or 8 taps you are using as a single filter and trying to get the required response. We are also using several antennas together, and this sort of large size dish antennas are used to get the signals from other radio stars, deep space exploration. Okay, astronomy people, radio astronomy people like this, they'll be using this sort of large sized antennas which are running over kilometers of length. 3 kilometers, 5 kilometers, like will be the antenna array length. So like that, they'll be going for it to get the signals from other stars, like 2 light years away, 3 light years away, 1.5 light years away, like this, even though the distance is very, very large. The most important thing in those things is, like all your signal processing people are always interested in the output signal SNR. Am I right? SNR must be 0.5 dB, 2 dB, 3 dB, like this you will be talking of. In such cases, these antenna people will be able to give you the signal SNR of negative values also. -5 dB, -8 dB also is okay for us. That means noise is 8 dB more than signal. Still we pick up the signals. That's the power of these antennas. Why they use only parabolic dish in such cases? Any idea? Why not any other antenna of similar type? Again, the same signal processing concept. Parabolic dish suppresses the noise drastically and improves the signal in the output, because you are getting the signals from the same source. So signal is highly coherent in these things, whereas the noise is coming from various sources. When the received signal is falling on the dish, parabolic dish, it will be focused onto a F point, is it not? We are going to have a small antenna which is going to receive all these signals. When you are integrating all the received signals at that, the signal components will get added up because of their coherent nature. because all of them will be traveling from the source to the destination. So equal distance, equal phase, equal amplitude, all those things will happen. So most of the times the signal will be amplified when you are combining like this, while the noise gets suppressed. So that is the power of these parabolic antennas what we use. Inherent SNR improvement is already there in these things. Okay, even in your other cases like Wi-Fi routers and all those things you are seeing in all building complexes as well as in your homes and many other places. Do you know what antenna is used there in most of the times? Anybody can guess? Okay, your Wi-Fi routers, you are using some 3 or 4 antennas at your doorstep, but many times wall mounting Wi-Fi routers are coming up. These wall mounting ones, does anybody know? Or in open areas, auditorium, etc., we are keeping to the walls. We use most of the times loop antennas. Okay, loop antenna is also going to suppress the noise because it works on magnetic field concepts, and the noise cannot enter into the system through magnetic field easily. Noise enters into the antenna system through electric field very comfortably. So these electric dipole and all those things are not used. Magnetic dipole like the loop antenna, slot, etc. are very much used. So inherent noise suppression, the signal processing is taken in the antenna structure itself. That's the beauty which you might not have heard anywhere. So the choice of antenna in any particular environment is based on what is the signal shape and what is the noise variation, what is likely to be, and what is the relationship between these two things. The cross correlation between S and M is taken into account to identify which antenna has to be used in which environment. Not by gain, not by frequency, not by anything. Many antennas can give the similar type of gain, similar type of frequency response, and many other things. But it is ultimately the noise temperature is what we call, that is the most important. But the noise power output of the antennas is represented as though it is coming from a resistor. So the resistor noise power output, we know KTB. So the noise power output by KB. K is the Boltzmann's constant and B is the bandwidth. If you take, that's what the noise temperature we call it. So more the noise power, more the temperature. So we look at the noise aspect of the antenna to decide, which one has to be selected for a particular environment. The Wi-Fi routers nowadays coming up are for that. At the bottom side of the slide, what I am trying to show you is an isotropic antenna, which you might have heard that it will have a equal response in both horizontal plane and vertical plane in the surroundings. So that will have a spherical pattern. That's what, if you at all we remember whatever you studied in your class. It is the speciality of the antenna people is that we don't use the rectangular graph or a log graph type of things. We use a polar diagram. Is that not? So polar diagrams is the y-axis of your graphs will be coming out as a radius, and the x-axis of your graph will go as the angle coordinate. So r and theta will be identified accordingly, and you will be drawing the graphs as polar diagram. So isotropic the radiator will have circle as a radiation pattern in both the planes, principal planes, whereas that is not physically realizable, whereas a normal antenna can have circle type of pattern in one plane and another pattern in the perpendicular plane. So that is the one which we are showing, like omnidirectional pattern of a dipole. And highly directional patterns are possible with the parabolic dish, lens antenna, horn antenna type of things. So that's what the directional pattern is, what we are trying to see. Particularly communication people will be using these directional patterns, because from one point to another point only you need to send the signals. So these are the things which have been happening for last 20-30 years, and there are hundreds of varieties of antennas which are in place. Now see the recent trend. When you are using a single antenna, you don't have much control on the response function. Where the maximum power is going to be radiated, in which direction no power is going to be radiated. The direction in which no power is going to be radiated is known as the null direction. Null electric field, null output, like things you can think of. But when the mobile communications came into picture, right? You wanted a lot of control on the radiation pattern. You want to send the signal towards the desired users where the mobile is operational from the base station, and you don't want to send it to the other sites where those mobiles are working in another operator's field and many other things. There are other signals which are also getting interfering ones. So you want a radiation pattern from the base station antenna, okay, to have maximum in the desired user direction and to have a null in the interfering user's direction. Both could not be simultaneously satisfied with a single antenna system. So people wanted to go for multiple antennas where you can gain this control. Okay, so sending as a maximum radiation towards desired user and sending a zero radiation towards interfering user. Okay, are receiving the signals from them. Please remember, antenna patterns are same whether it is transmitting or receiving. Okay, that's what you must have studied in your antenna class as reciprocity theorem. Okay, please somebody can mute the mic, please.
Sir, sorry for interrupting. Your slides are not advanced.
Yeah, I am advancing now. I am not. Is that advanced now?
No, sir. No, sir.
Oh. Okay, 1 minute. Now, is it going up?
Presentation is not shared, sir.
Oh, sir. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Now, okay, sir.
Is it advanced?
Yes, sir. Advancing.
Okay. So, the antenna, when you are talking of and you want to design such systems and other things, you need to know what parameters are to be taken to have a proper antenna pattern. Okay, the response function wise, you need to have certain parameters and you can maximize using any of your algorithms and see that the output pattern is what is expected. So this is what we do in all our electronics systems, is it not? Even if you design an amplifier, you would like to know what is the bandwidth, what is the gain and other things from the graph. Then only you are satisfied, yes, I have designed an amplifier properly. Similarly for your filters and other things, what is the pass band ripple, what is the stop band attenuation characteristic, and these sort of things are very much important. Same manner here, when you are having the radiation which is shown on a normal rectangular graph with y-axis as the response, then the main lobe will be there and several side lobes will be there. If you convert that into a polar diagram, you are going to get something like this. This is the main lobe and these are the side lobes which you are going to see. The main lobe width is one thing, and half power points on the main lobe also will be having some other names. Okay, so the half power point wise, if you see the width of the main lobe, then we call it as half power beam width. Okay, from null to null of one side to other side, if you see, then we call it as beam width between first nulls or first null beam width. And what is the first side lobe level and what is the main lobe level? If you take the ratio, we call it as side lobe ratio or side lobe level. So these are 3 or 4 parameters which are okay topmost concerned so far. And nowadays, when we are going for these missile systems and other aspects in radar particularly, it's not simply the main lobe that's more important. More communication people were so far interested about the main lobe, but other people like the radar people and all those, they are more interested in how exactly the power is going in the other directions. So where are these nulls or the zero response points going to be placed? How deep the null is, because null means exactly 0 dB, you will not be doing it. You will be spending a small amount of power towards that also in the physical situations. So how much low it is going to be? Is it 60 dB low or 80 dB low? Then the main lobe maximum direction is also of importance. So please understand that single antenna systems can give good radiation pattern with fixed type and other things, and the gain is fixed. Okay, if you want more gain, you have to increase the size and the shape. Other things also matter certainly, and the bandwidth and other things are highly limited. So these are some of the varieties which you might have seen in your day-to-day life. And when you go to an array, then only you have a lot of choice. Okay, what are the choices that are possible? When you are using multiple antennas, you can put them in along a straight line, along a circle, along a triangle, or along something else, like what we do in our research area, like fractal shapes and all those things you can keep. That's what we say array geometry has one parameter. Then the spacing between the elements you can modify. That is a D. Okay, D1, D2, D3, like this you put. That is position modulated array, we call it. The excitation amplitude can be changed. Amplitude variations can be possible. Then the phase of the input signal can also be changed to different antennas. And the individual elements can have their own separate patterns. Like this, 5 different parameters you can choose to see that the response function is as exactly as possible, particularly sending the maximum signal towards the desired user, stopping the signal towards the interfering user or interfering sites. If you can do it exactly, then you are a good antenna designer, and the antenna what you designed can be called as a smart antenna. That means antenna is a simple element. Antenna is not smart. Antenna is a simple passive element like a resistor, capacitor, inductor type of things. But by adding some signal processing, by changing the amplitude of the current or the phase of the current, if you are able to get better things to control, then we call it as a smart antenna. Okay, so for a normal antenna design, we have very, very classical methods like Taylor's method, Woodward-Lawson method, Dolch-Chebyshev method, Fourier transform method, Shelkunov's method. Like this, some 20 classical methods are there. But the type of patterns what you can get are limited. You have only control of the main lobe or only the side lobe level or only the beam width, some 2 or 3. Total antenna with pattern, that means for various angles, how much response function must come and all those things you cannot control much. But these methods were used for a long time, and most of the times antenna people went for the fabrication of the antenna, tested that, and then made corrections in the, again, they designed, then went for another antenna. Like this cut and try methods were used for a long time. But later on came up the evolutionary techniques of the like this genetic algorithm, particle swarm optimization, ant colony. Like this, you might be quoting some 20 types. All those things were also tried. Okay, and people have designed very good antenna systems and other things. But in the recent past, to get the smart antenna, that means very good signal processing capability when you want to implement into it, people found that these evolutionary techniques wise, if you go, it's taking very, very long time to stabilize the response what is required and all those things. So to accelerate that process of coming to an optimized solution through evolutionary methods, they wanted to start with some standard method first and then switch over to evolutionary methods. That's what the hybridization people are talking about. That means with some classical method, they start, go up to certain extent of design, then switch, taking those inputs, they go over to the hybridization methods. Some people have gone for it. Evolutionary techniques like GA, PSO, all these things. Other people have tried the other way also. They start with random inputs, design up to certain extent using evolutionary methods. Okay, when reasonably close ones have come, using those inputs, they are switched over to the conventional methods and then design the final system of interest. Okay, so like this, evolutionary and classical methods have been hybridized. Which one first and which one next is their choice, and there are plus and minus points. Okay, so basically, antenna array design is a non-linear problem, optimization problem. What do I mean by non-linear optimization? The output function is sum of several inputs with some additional functions like exponential and this, that we have to add. Okay, inputs are currents. So current multiplied by e power j times something something. Add all the such currents with all e power j's, you will get the final response function. So when you are multiplying current with e power j of something, definitely it's going to be a non-linear one. And adding all those things is the total response what you are getting. So at any point in the free space, the response is due to all the currents that are flowing in various antenna elements and their distances and all those things with reference to the observation point matter a lot in the total response. Okay, So in this manner, if you are designing, you can design certain standard types of antenna patterns. But these days, even in the wireless communication aspects also, people are looking for patterns to track constant height targets, the targets which are coming towards you at constant height. If you want to see, the radar people have been using something called a cosecant pattern for a long time. As the target comes closer and closer, the input signal goes on increasing exponentially. So if you don't reduce the antenna gain in the receiving mode, the input signal may spoil the receiver very easily. So not to get the receiver any problem of this type, the antenna gain in the receiving mode is reduced in proportion to the distance. When the target is very, very far off, antenna gain is more. When the target is coming closer, the antenna gain is reduced. The gain variation is found to be in the function of cosecant theta. So that's how we call them as cosecant theta patterns and this sort of things. Even in the wireless communication today, when people are moving around the mobile towers with their mobiles operating and all those things, they are trying to use this sort of patterns for it. Now, coming to a smart antenna, what exactly is that? When you go for a movie, you will be observing this sort of thing. Your ear also matters, but does this receiving pattern type of things when you go for a movie? Is it not? In a movie, what is that we try to do? We try to listen to the what the actors are saying on the screen. But next to your row, somebody may be creeping or maybe murmuring and all those things. They will also be continuously talking. Particularly if you observe some lovers coming and all those things you might have seen. They'll be continuously chatting this, that, and about the movie or something else, something else. But what you will do? The disturbing voice from the next row and the direct auditorium voice. How do we do it? We try to maximize the auditorium response and minimize the response from the unnecessary people in the front row. The same thing we also do in the case of your eyes, because antennas and eyes work on similar lines. Antennas can transmit as well as receive. Eyes can only receive, but performance wise both are on the same lines. So eye pattern also you'll be doing it, is it not? After you movie started, suppose you enter into the movie theater, what happens initially? You will see only two heads of your front row people, but slowly over the period of time, maybe after 2-3 seconds, you'll start observing what is there on the screen, and slowly you'll be concentrating only onto the screen. Your receiving pattern is modified by the eye, okay, adaptively, so that the objectionable front row person's heads are not giving any disturbance to you. Same thing is done in antenna systems. Then antenna is a smart antenna. That is the definition. So it combines multiple antenna elements with signal processing capability. The most important why I came to you today, when you are having signal processing, why are you doing antenna work and other things? Because now what we are doing is antennas are attached with signal processing capabilities, and now we are getting much better responses compared to the earlier times with little bit of energy. And the noise reduction is very great. And even if the target is moving, we don't have much problem. That is what the 4G, 5G systems you are observing with your mobiles. Earlier, when you were moving in a car or a train, getting the signals was very, very difficult. But today, with 4G, 5G and all those things on, even if you are traveling in a car and other things, you are able to make video calls. You know, when you are moving in a car with a mobile, there will be Doppler shift in the frequency because of the movement between the base station and your mobile. Definitely, Doppler frequency shift is going to come, but that has been absorbed because of the smart antenna concept. Okay, the antenna frequency also is continuously changed depending on the speed at which you are moving, and there is no loss of the signal. That's why you are able to get the video signals also without much of a problem. It is all the good work done by the smart antennas. That means signal processing job that has been done at the back of these antennas. Okay, and the other one is we need to change the signal behavior and the signal response and all those things for the antenna as per the signal environment. As per the signal environment means how many interfering signals are there, how many noise. Now, what is the noise characteristic at this point of time? Taking all those things, we try to see that SINR is very, very high. Signal to interference and noise ratio is to be maximized. Okay, and you see that other people are not disturbed very much into this. And in this context, we talk of SDMA. Are you able to see SDMA screen, please?
Yes, sir.
Good, good.
Yes, sir.
SDMA is another one compared to your TDMA, FDMA, and all those things. Here, all the physical resources can be used by all the users who are separated by certain angles with reference to the transmitting antenna. That's it. Okay. So everything can be allocated, like your code division multiple access. Is that not? Your bandwidth can be allocated completely all the time to each user, because you are changing the users by code. Here, instead of code, it will be angle. Okay, that's why we call it as space division multiple access. So what is going to happen is, if that angle wise, if the user is moving, there will be several handing overs from one channel to another channel or another system and other things. Intra-cell handovers are going to be many more. So a smart antenna, what is the advantage we are going to see? It can reduce the multipath problem drastically. Why digital communication people, particularly wireless communication people, are using these smart antennas, are trying to understand much better and other things, is to see that the fading problem is minimized and inter-symbol interference problem is minimized. Multipath problem, which is the greatest nuisance for all digital communication wireless people, is minimized in this. And see, radiation patterns can be changed very easily. At different times, you can have different types of radiation patterns to save the power. During the daytime, when the calls are so many and other things, you need to identify each user and try to maximize the power. But as the day goes off, after 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the night, you can see in a particular cell area, the number of cells at any given time is very, very less. So you can have a simple pattern for all those things and try to minimize the power output. And many other aspects are coming up in these things. Okay, and this co-channel interference can be reduced because you are going for space division multiple access. So co-channel interference problems and other things. What are the basic types of smart antennas? The simplest one is a switched lobe or a switched beam. Only one antenna, your pattern you are going to have, and you are going to switch it to all the locations in the surrounding area. All the 360 degrees or -60 to +60 type of one sectoral area and all that. You are going to see one pattern and try to identify different users. It's simply something similar to time division multiplexing you are going to have. The second one, a bit more complicated, is that you are going to have several outputs from the antenna systems. Okay, that means antenna array, which is taking up several inputs from all these antenna elements, process them inside and give several outputs for each of those user levels differently. So these are all the two types basically people talk of. And if you are going for the second one, which is very, very costly and very useful, but you can call it as a dynamic phased array. And here the angle of information is also very precisely taken, and continuous tracking. That's what is being done when you are making video calls from a car, when you are moving in and all those things when you are talking of. Okay. And here what you need to have is an adaptive array. Adaptive means things that can be changed depending on the conditions. Okay. Local conditions. Cognitive. You can make it as a cognitive system also. Okay. So radiation pattern can be changed according to the null locations. Like in interfering users, interfering items may be changing in their angular locations. You have to change your radiation pattern accordingly to that. That's what is the adaptive nature what you need to have. And similarly, your desired user may be moving, so you have to change the maximum direction. So here you can see in this slide the switched lobe and the dynamic phased array concept. Switched lobe means one radiation pattern only you are generating, and you are moving it all along the 360 degrees surrounding the antenna system, just to pick up the signals from various mobiles at different times. as you are doing it at very high speed, more than the Nyquist sampling and all these sort of things we know, we take the signals from each of those users and process them and give the output. Okay, but this is very, very less efficient, but compared to the normal fixed type of antenna radiation systems, this is better thing. Okay, this was very preliminary, maybe 10-15 years ago we were doing it. The second one is the one what people are talking of as the dynamic phased array. That means we will have one radiation fixed type of pattern which will have a specified nulls and other things, and that pattern we try to see that the maximum of that pattern is towards the desired user, and whatever the interfering users are there, we don't care much because the antenna pattern is fixed. In the third case, we make it as adaptive. That means depending on the locations of the interfering users, we try to put the nulls. Depending on the required user location, we place the maximum of the radiation towards that. And this can be changed continuously. Okay, if the maximum direction needs to be changed, we can change it. If the interfering directions are changed, we can move the nulls to a different location. So null movement and main lobe movement, we try to make them independent. Okay, whereas in the second case, the nulls and the main lobe are interrelated. So if you move the main lobe, nulls are also moved. So interfering users are not suppressed completely in the second case. Okay, some disturbance you may have to accept. But in the third case, the interfering ones are suppressed to a great extent. The desired user response is maximized, so you get very good response. But what is the extra penalty? The second one will be having a fixed type of radiation pattern. So design of the system is very simple and very easy to maintain. You don't require highly qualified engineers and all that for all this. Whereas in the third case, you require highly qualified engineers. The system complexity is also more. Why? Because the interfering users' directions may change, or the desired user direction may change. Whatever happens, you have to immediately change the antenna pattern. You have to identify the new inputs required for your array, similar to your filter responses. If the filter response function is changed, obviously the tapping points, whatever inputs you have to give, you have to change all those things. Very fast, you have to take the inverse Fourier transform of your response function and get the inputs required and all that in the simplest manner. Antenna pattern also is the same thing. Antenna pattern and antenna array input are Fourier transform pairs. The Fourier transform is taken with reference to the angle, whereas in your case you will take with reference to the frequency or the time depending on the type of filter. Is it not? E power j omega t you will be doing it, or minus j omega t depending on what Fourier transform you are choosing, which one you are doing and other things. Here we are also do the same way, e power jk x, like that we are going to talk of. Okay, jk theta, jk x, jk t are like this, e power plus and minus. Please remember, I think some of you may be confused. There are 24 varieties of Fourier transforms. Different people choose different types of transforms for different applications. Okay, plus type transforms are there, e power plus j, e power minus j are also there. Depending on the situation, you have to choose. 1 by 2 pi in some cases, 1 by square root 2 pi in some other cases. Like this, there are 24 varieties. Please remember. So, what exactly we are trying to understand is again indicated in the same type of diagram here. The switched strategy is very simple one. Like you are going to have fixed radiation pattern with fixed main lobe and fixed null direction, side lobe, etc. You are going to move it to different locations in a successive manner and take the output. Whatever plus and minus points it has, but it's the simplest case. Whereas in the adaptive case, you are going to design for each environment where the maximum should go in the desired user direction. You will specify where the nulls must have, that means undesired users directions, 0 response points must be placed. You will specify and design, okay, for each case, and it may be done using digital computers very fast. So what is the advantage you are going to have with these things? If you go for a switched beam, your coverage is going to be okay, up to certain extent like this, And in an adaptive environment, you can have much better coverage of all this with low power. Please remember, when you go for adaptive nature of all these things, the power requirement goes down, and even if the user moves with certain amount of velocity, you will not have any loss of the signal. That's how we are able to get video calls without much of a problem with these things. Any questions or doubts, please, so far?
Sir, what if instead of main beam, if we just separate the beam in at the 0 point, that means that say in theta plus theta 1 beam and minus theta 1 beam.
Yes. What type of thing you want? That's what we call them as difference patterns. Okay. Yeah, there are, okay, what we normally see in all our BTech level classes is the sum pattern. Okay, that means we give the same amplitude and change the phase in a symmetric manner from the central element, plus side one element and minus side one element, we give the same type of phase. Okay, like this. But if you go for 180-degree phase shift on okay of the same things, then you will get a difference pattern and you can have different lobes and all those things. Okay, if you study Elliott's book Antenna Theory and Design, there are this sort of discussions. Okay, plus side will have some side lobe level, minus side will have a different side lobe level. That can also be designed. Okay, these are all done excellently by 2 or 3 people, and those names they are given. Right. Let's just have different subject altogether. Definitely we can do it. Okay, in antenna field there is so much novelty, so much variation that is always possible. Similar to your filters, as I tell you, it's nothing great that I am talking of. But what I say is not only in filters, but in antennas also. That's what I want you to get convinced. Okay, you know, in filters, like in signal processing, which is the main brain work only, is it not? Not much of actual physical things. Much of all the signal processing algorithms and other things are mainly brain work. Same type of things can be done in antennas. That's what I want you to understand after this lecture. That's it. Any other questions, please?
Sir, another question is that, sir, what is the relation to the eigenvector and the antenna beam pattern in phased array?
Yeah, that's a different subject. What is eigenvector first, as per your understanding? Because we hear eigenvectors in all subjects, more or less.
Sir, eigenvector, sir, is more like in antenna sense that on some basis vector or the eigenvector, it gives the maximum value, and on other eigenvector, it gives the lowest value.
Yes. Yeah. In our normal network concept and other things, eigenvectors are the inputs, and accordingly, whatever impedance you are finding for those eigenvectors are the eigenvalues. Is it not? Input impedance is the eigenvalue. Similarly, in a resonating system, the eigenvalue is coming from is nothing but the resonant frequency of that. Okay, of that particular type of input, and other oscillating systems and other things like LC network. Okay, for an LC network, if you apply all this eigenvalue theory and all that, the eigenvalue is nothing but the resonant frequency of that LC system. Right, that is it not? Similarly here in eigenvector approach also people are trying to do. Eigenvectors, we try to take it as the input things, and whatever response we are getting accordingly will go get modified from those things. Okay, there are difference patterns I was talking to you. I got the name. Baylis is the man, scientist who has done extensive work on these things, and we call them as Baylis patterns. B-A-Y-L-I-S-S. Okay, so if just Google Baylis patterns, you will get all these sort of things, whatever you were asking about the previous question. Any other types of questions, please?
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, in phased array antennas used for DO estimation generally, so there the concept of eigenvector comes eigenvalue. So yeah. What is the eigenvector there, sir?
Depends what you have defined in your matrix. Okay. That is what. Yeah, the A matrix, no, you'll be talking of A minus lambda
yes.
equal to 0. This
yes,
is some equation, your characteristic equation you are going to form. What is your A matrix? That's how it goes. In the network theory, what we have studied for a long time, okay, all the input parameters and other things we are going to form as a network A matrix, and then modify that, and you get the network input impedances of different ports and other things. On the same lines, which one you are choosing? If you are choosing the response, the Fourier transform of the inputs, if you are putting it in your A matrix, which is normally done, e power j's and all those things will be there in your A matrix. Is it not? So
yes,
that's what. If you go for that, then your angles, whatever you are getting, are the maximum directions. Okay, the principal maximum and several other second maximum and other things will be coming up, right? But sometimes people take the inputs as your A matrix and work out that also, right? And you take the Hermitian and all these sort of things on that. Okay, so there are many variations in the eigenvalue domain of this. But nowadays, if you go for it, you will be having very tough time to come out of your theoretical calculations, and many people are going for hybridization methods or even complete evolutionary techniques very comfortably in signal processing, as you might have understood. And easily they are realizing the filters for the desired responses. Okay, now let me see how we can make the antenna as very intelligent. Okay, and this one I am trying to see now. Where is this sharing? Are you able to see the next slide, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So here we have two names coming up quite regularly: beamforming and direction of arrival. Beamforming is used when you want to radiate the signals. That's how you are seeing this. Is it not? Okay. So how you want to radiate, in which direction you want to send the maximum and all those things, you want to design everything. We talk of that particular system as beamforming network. Okay. What exactly we are trying to do here is the inputs to various antenna elements: input current amplitude, input current phase. These two things we are going to modify to see that the response is maximum at a particular location and very, very less in other directions and all these sort of things. Okay, so in which direction, that is that phi angle K, is decided, and accordingly we try to adjust these things. That is one thing what we call as beamforming. In the transmitting mode, if you want to design everything, then we can take it simply as a beamforming network and beamforming things. If you are doing the other way, okay, angle of arrival, you want to identify. That means when you want to receive the signals from your target and identify in which direction your target is, that is in the receiving mode, when you do a similar thing, then we call it as DOA estimator and DOA estimation process and our angle of estimation and all these sort of things. Okay, so for an antenna engineer, both are similar jobs because antenna works in a reciprocal manner. Okay, so this is how the basic phased array concept can be shown as a block diagram. Okay, if you are working with a simple narrowband system, then you can definitely get all the inputs from various antenna elements and add or subtract or multiply, do whatever, some mathematical operation you can do on all these things and see that the output signals from all these are at the same amplitude and phase. Why? You want to have the vector addition of all these in antenna outputs after signal processing and see that your y of k is a maximum. Your y of k will be maximum when all the inputs to the summer are having equal amplitude and phase. What happens is when the signals are received by these antenna elements, the signals will have different amplitudes and different phases. So what we try to do is either you amplify the signals to the same level and adjust the phases to the same level, then you send them to the summer if it is possible. Adjust the phase means what? Whatever one is having the highest value, we try to add a delay element for that. Whatever is having the lowest, the delay element is 0. So highest to lowest, you go on adding the delays, okay, in a reverse manner and see that all the outputs are in phase. Amplitudes wise, if they are differing, you can also do the similar thing. Like you can amplify all of them to the same level or amplify them to different levels and other things and put a limiter. Okay, like if you are not able to amplify properly and this sort of things, you amplify them to whatever suitable levels at each stage and at the output of that you put limiters. The limited value will be same for all these outputs, so that the amplitudes are same and phases are same. Then you take the output. But how to adjust these signal processing elements? You are going to get a feedback from the output. Is the output maximum or not? Is the output good in terms of signal and suppressing noise very well or not? These aspects we try to compare at each stage by sampling the output. That's the feedback loop we are going to have. So it's a closed loop system we are going to have, and whatever output we are getting and how the output must be used to set the input signal amplitude and phase levels is the signal processing what one has to do. So this y of k is the input for all your signal processing elements, and the output of all these things must be same amplitude, same phase signals. That's the trick one has to do in all these elements. Okay, and you can do it in steps also in these aspects. Okay, first you may do only for amplitude part and then phase part, or first you may do over very narrow range of frequencies of all that, another range of frequencies in another system, another range of frequencies like this. So because doing the similar things over broadband is also difficult. You cannot have phase shifters adjusting the phase of the signals over a wide range of frequency. Very, very difficult. Okay, phase shifters will have a lot of frequency dependence because they are interrelated. Rate of change of phase is frequency, is that not? So maintaining the phase over wide range of frequencies is difficult. That's why we try to reduce to different stages and then go on adding and all those things appropriately, and then doing it in multiple phases, multiple frequencies, multiple amplitude levels. So many variations are possible. That's on the right hand side. We are trying to see how much effort you want to have on all this. Okay, and now this is what is being practiced in the actual wireless communication. Now the antenna people have been using this sort of techniques for a long time in radar field. In radar field we have been using systems antenna arrays of the order of 128, 256, 1000 elements, 500 elements like that to get the very good response. Please remember, in radars also the signal processing is very, very crucial because many a times signal and the noise are equal level, and in worst cases signal is submerged in the noise. And important thing is the shape of the signal is not at all important for us. It's the information contained in the received signal is more important. That's what is the radar signal processing, very, very specific. So the same type of things are being implemented in the communication. In the earlier stages, they were not able to do it because most of the times radar signal processing people have been using matched filter concept. As much as possible, minor variations of those things like your Kalman filter and this sort of things, where the output signal shape is not same as the input signal shape in any match filter case. So earlier communication people were using only analog communication. So output signal shape is very crucial for input signal. So to maximize the signal to noise ratio, if you want to go for match filter, the whole thing is defined because signal shape is lost. But now we are going for digital communication where the signal shape is not at all important for us because we know even if the pulse is very much distorted, we can get back the pulse very easily using a Schmitt trigger or a monostable type of circuits and other things. So digital communication people, when they started using these concepts, it was a success, and match filter thing is going on now. And multiple input, multiple output systems have come in the recent times to improve the signal to noise ratio. And in this multiple input means the same signal is being sent by the transmitter using several antennas. Multiple output means the received signal is from various antennas and then processed together in the receiver. Right. That's how single input, multiple output, multiple input, single output, like this, all possibilities are there. So when the transmitter is having multiple antenna elements, maybe we are transmitting at the same frequency or different frequencies, same code or different codes, many things are possible. Similarly, in the receiver side, you will have several antennas to receive the same things, but processing them is the most crucial part. Your signal processing people will do the miracles there and try to see that the interfering signals are suppressed drastically. The unwanted noise is cancelled to a very great extent. Okay, so what are the advantages? Increased signal gain, better range, and that means you can get signals from very, very far off points. Fewer base stations are required. Interference rejection and load balancing. Okay, and increased capacity. Like this, you will have many more advantages depending on the complexity, whatever you can introduce in your MIMO systems. Okay, so the conventional systems and the smart antenna systems are shown in the two diagrams here. Are you able to see that, please? Conventional and smart antenna, two different types of diagrams.
Yes, sir.
Right. So, see the general capacity wise, low, high, and all these things. Another important thing, the leftmost, the conventional systems used to go for 128 watts of power to have some useful coverage, maybe up to 5 kilometers, 8 kilometers, or something like that. 128 was the power requirement. What's the power requirement with your smart antenna now? Right hand side. What's the power requirement?
2 watts, sir.
Just 2 watts. See, that is the most important thing and interesting thing when you are going for your smart antennas. Not only capacity increasing, okay, not only the interference is reduced and this, that, and all those things. The requirement for the processing power is drastically reduced, and most of it we are trying to do in the digital domain. That's another important thing, and you know very well, processors have come with signal processing capabilities and all this, and these smart antennas are very much used in the radar field for a long time, particularly for air traffic control, because several aircrafts will be trying to come to busy airports. Airports will have 30 runways. Okay, like Heathrow Airport in London, or Amsterdam Airport, or Frankfurt, where more or less at the center of the globe, these airports are placed, and you will have huge amount of traffic. Various aircrafts will be coming and going back. So the air traffic controller must be able to precisely identify from which direction an aircraft is coming into the airport, which runway it has to land, and all those things. Similarly, when aircraft is taken off, up to certain distance, he has to guide that whether the aircraft is going in the proper direction or not. So air traffic controller, similar job like your base station top, okay, tracking various mobiles, whatever they are doing, they have been doing it, and source location and classification by the sonar systems. Even the missiles and other things are nowadays having this source location. That means, is there any radar in the nearby which is trying to track me? How do I still make it even if I am tracked by a radar system? Anti-radiation missiles are coming up these days. What they do is the missile will go and hit the radar itself at the base. Okay, because of its signal processing capability kept on the missile system, they try to make it as anti-radiation missile. So once the radar is collapsed, you can send hundreds of other types of normal missiles and eliminate the military base very easily. So anti-radiation missiles have become very, very popular, and India is making very good headway in those things. Next generation ARM. Okay, everything is ARM nowadays for them. What is ARM? Anti-radiation missiles. That means when a radar is trying to track the missile, it will still try to avoid the tracking capability and go and hit the same radar itself. Okay, and in imaging applications, particularly for cancer treatment and other places, to identify the region which is affected by the cancer cells and all those things. Similarly, inside the body, if any specific part is there, tumors and all those things, what is the location of the tumor, how wide that tumor is, what is the strength, what is what about it, they want to identify, because the tumors will have a different dielectric constant compared to the normal healthy skin dielectric constant. So the difference in the dielectric constant, and accordingly the changes in the noise in the signal reflected from those tumors, we try to identify and get the indications properly. That is what the imaging people are doing it. And astrophysical exploration, as I was telling you, from other radio stars, whatever signals we are getting which are submerged in the noise, maybe 8 dB, 10 dB, like that, also they try to identify the signals very well and process them excellently and try to get very useful information. Okay, and biomedical, as I told you, fetal heart monitoring and inside the mother's womb, how the baby's heart is functioning and other things people are able to understand. Mother's system is functioning, is giving the signals. Okay, avoiding those mother signals, you have to catch these signals from the fetal body inside the mother's womb. Okay, there again it is signal submerged in noise, because mother's heart signals are noise for us. We don't want those signals. The small kid inside the mother's womb, what is the signal we have to pick up? That's the important thing where people are trying to understand these aspects. Similarly, hyperthermia. Hyperthermia means, does anybody know what is hyperthermia by any chance? Yes. Yeah, in cancer treatment, what exactly they try to do is they burn the cancerous cells. They send huge amount of electromagnetic energy towards the exact region which is affected by cancerous region and burn those cells. At the same time, you should not burn the healthy cells. So what is the region which is affected, and surrounding that region, protecting that, you have to burn very, very carefully. So increasing the temperature of these cells is what we call as hyperthermia. So to increase the temperature is not that easy. Why? Body tries to reduce that. Body is having its own self-adjusting mechanism. So when you try to send the energy, body will try to pump in more water towards that and see that water means, don't expect exactly water is done. Through more blood circulation, it will try to reduce the temperature. So you have to work over that and try to see that the cancerous cells are burnt and healthy cells are not affected. So highly pointed beams are required to adjust these things. Okay, the phased arrays are very much designed with very good signal processing capability, having exact radiation pattern similar to the cancerous region which is affected inside the body at a depth inside the skin. It is there. So the skin should not be heated up. The first level body inside the skin should not be affected. Deep in the skin only must be affected. Okay, that's what the trick is. So very carefully they will be doing that. So the radiation pattern will be properly identified similar to the region which is affected, and then taking the inverse Fourier transform of that, they identify the input signals required for the phased array and send the beam exactly to those locations and burn them. It's a very tricky task, and thanks to the doctors and those experts, very, very systematically they do all those things by taking several images of the cancerous region. Okay, so those of you might have heard something about the radiation therapy of maybe some of your relatives or any unfortunate people. So please try to understand those aspects, how critical it is. But still, doctors do it, radiologists do it very efficiently. And the antenna patterns will have very, very small beam widths. Can you imagine what will be the beam width of those with phased arrays? 0.2 degrees, 0.3 degrees, like that. Getting a small beam width of that is a really challenging task for the antenna designers. Please remember. Okay, so shaped beams, like whatever I have been talking of, the cancerous regions of different shapes and other things, how do we get it? Similarly, in the satellite cases also, similar things do happen. Like if you want to radiate a specific TV program only to specific region, like Andhra people using Telugu or Maharashtra people using Marathi. So if you want to send some Marathi channel, Marathi program only to Maharashtra region, how do we identify the radiation pattern, not to disturb other regions? The footprint of the satellite must be taken appropriately, and the inverse Fourier transform of that region you have to take and get the appropriate inputs required for the antennas and the satellites to see that only that particular region is getting those Maharashtrian channels, or Telugu people getting Telugu channel, or Tamil people getting Tamil channels, exactly like that. So satellite people use these methods very efficiently. Okay, so traditional methods and classical methods. Okay, just for information I'm trying to discuss. I'm not going to all the details, just give you an exposure that And whatever we did at NIT Warangal, some of these methods we hybridized and got some new results. And one of my scholars has got a PhD out of it, as I told you. So I'm trying to present some of those results. Any questions or doubts, please? Yeah, somebody asked me, how do you do the inverse Fourier transform and other things? Inverse Fourier transform methods, again, there are 2 or 3 methods that what we tried maybe long ago when I was in Kharagpur, when I was doing some PhD and all that. So we try to do it in the K domain. That's what we call it. Okay, K means 2 pi by lambda, right? We try to transfer the basic angular information, whatever we get from the radiation pattern, expected radiation pattern and other things, into K domain. Okay, and from that K domain, using Shelkunov's method or something else, we try to get the required inputs. That's how the at least whatever we did at that point of time. Maybe there may be many more developments must have come in that. Okay, so please look at the papers, and 1 or 2 subject books on antenna theory design also have discussed such K domain. That's what we call it. Okay, that is angular spectrum method. That's basically the way we have to talk about it. Okay, and we have to work on those things. Right. So here normally the classical methods is Newton's method and steepest descent, least mean square, and this sort of things. The signal processing people have been using it for the design of the antenna array, that is beam forming network. That's what we call it, or DOA estimation methods. These are the things which you might have studied in the textbook and all those things. First 2 methods require an estimate of the gradient at each iteration, whereas LMS does not require the repetitive gradient estimations. Okay, so these are all very classical methods you must have studied in your signal processing techniques class also. Okay, and what is the advantage with LMS? Overall error between what you are designing and what you are supposed to design, overall error will be reduced. That means at various positions along the x-axis, depending on the x-axis what you choose, whether your time domain or frequency domain, or in our case, the angle wise, we try to see what is the response expected and what is the response what we can get from a trial function. We try to see the differences, square all those differences and add them and try to minimize that. Least mean square, because the differences can be positive or negative, and when you have sum of all those things may come to a 0. That means indicating that the desired pattern and the obtained pattern are same, which is not correct physically. So to avoid that, we try to go for a mean square error aspect and we try to minimize those things. So these are all standard methods, and you know LMS, the disadvantage is it can get stuck in the local minimum, and the convergence is also reasonably slow. So what we try to do in the case of antenna array is pattern synthesis. We try to go with some additional things in this. Okay, so these are all some of the special combinations what you require to do. And what is the adaptive antenna concept, very generally explained in most of the papers as well as in the textbooks, is this. What is this concept, antenna concept, as you see here, please? User 1 is sending the signals from one location. User 2 is sending the signal from another location. Is it not? They are separated by 2 different angles. You are receiving both the signals using 2 antennas. By changing the gains of those 2 antennas in 2 different directions, okay, the outputs can be separated. Both antennas will give directly A1 as well as B1 from the first antenna, A2 and AS1 and BS2. Both the antennas will give, but by adjusting the phase of those things, you can try to see that AS1 minus BS2 is one output, AS1 plus BS2 is another output. And by combining them appropriately with proper gain of 1, then you can get A from only one side, B from another side. That's the trick what people can do with smart antennas. Okay, so this is beam forming as we discussed already, and this is the linear array thing what is expected. Okay, the array weights, that means these array outputs are multiplied by these W0, 1, 2, etc. depending on the antenna time, and you get the output of W times X1 at the output and adding all those things. Okay, WH times X of N. Hermitian, is it not? W of H. That means you make it as either a row matrix and X as the column matrix, and you get all these sort of things. This is all standard signal processing techniques. We are all aware. I don't want to go for it. And this is the error information. What is desired at various outputs and what is that you are getting at various outputs. Okay. And this will be a large value at various N values. So at various outputs, whatever thing you are getting and whatever you are expected to get, we try to take the difference, and again we try to adjust the weights depending on this. We start with some random weights, okay, and then go on adjusting step by step. So it is a very slow process what we try to do, and for a simple case we are trying to get these elements. So LMS can be used, and don't look at the main lobes. Main lobes will appear always here because we are trying to normalize with reference to that. That's not a problem. What is more important is the interfering directions, how far they are rejected. At 60 degrees and 30 degrees, okay, at 60 degrees on the positive side and at minus 30 degrees on the negative side, okay, how deeply you are able to get these ones is the speciality. So there are two radiation patterns we have taken up. One is due to number of elements of 21 array. The second one, the red one, is due to 51 element array. So as you go to higher number of elements, the beam is more sharper, less beam width and all that. Even the beam, unwanted beam directions, the null depth is also very, very great. Okay, see here, minus 80 dB compared to the desired one. Whereas here it is minus 60 dB only when you have 21 elements. So more number of elements, more complexity, more price, and more rejection. Similar to your number of filters, number of filter sections what you use in your filters case, is it not? Sharper filters. Okay. Similarly, another case also is discussed in this paper, and deep nulls are placed in the unwanted directions of minus 30 degrees and minus 90 degrees cases. Okay, and same thing we are trying to see. This is more important for the convergence plot. Okay, the convergence is NLMS and LMS we are trying to show. What is NLMS? Normalized LMS. If you try to see, the convergence is much faster in the antenna array case. Okay, less than 10 iterations is almost, whereas in the normal LMS you have to go for 20 iterations and even for 21 element array. And this variation is also more. Started with low value, but again it came to very high value and then has gone down. Whereas more or less continuously NLMS case, it has gone down and got stabilized very easily. And the similar story for 51 elements case is shown in this. The same conclusion can be made in this. Okay, and similarly we have also tried how to use the recursive least squares RLS algorithm, and which is also having the problem of local minimum, global minimum, etc. But much faster it is going to converge towards the global minimum. And these are the usual steps of your RLS algorithm. And this is what the ABCD matrix, lemma of the ABCD is to be taken. As usual, you have to identify 4 matrices in the RLS algorithm. You must have studied in your classroom. And the lemma of that, and in the present case, how do we reduce this residue? We try to understand, and these are the simulation results what we can have for a 21 element array when you have 60 degrees and 30 degrees rejections that are required. The null depths at these points is very, very crucial for us. Okay, so this is all my 30 degrees case and 60 degrees case, what you can see here. Okay, so another one what we tried is a constant modulus algorithm, CMI, is also tried on the same conventional method. We have developed these things, and what we have the angle of direction of arrival at 60 degrees when we wanted to have, you have the beam maximum exactly coming at 60 degrees position without much of a problem, even with a 21. These are all simulations. Please remember, the reality will be slightly different, or sometimes marginally different, or sometimes greatly different. One has to really see all those things, but in a normal lab environment, putting 21 elements, radiating and getting the radiation pattern is not that easy. We also tried with circular array, not only linear arrays. And in the circular array case, you have slightly more complicated Fourier transform that has to be taken for the input signals and get the output. So what are these WNs here? They are the excitation coefficients, amplitude as well as phase. That means it's a phasor what we are going to have, and which is multiplied by e power minus j with angle things. That's how it's a non-linear problem, because input and output are not linearly related. There is a summation that is involved in between. And this is a radiation pattern of the circular array with a DOA of 20 degrees. Okay, at 20 degrees location, you have the beam maximum. And undesired one is parallelly taken up with 50 degrees location also. Okay, so at 50 degrees, 40 and 60, at 50 degrees, you have a null depth here that is possible. And this radiation pattern of a circular array, earlier one was taken with LMS, and this one is taken with RLS, where you have a null depth at minus 20 degrees. Exactly, you wanted a null at minus 20. That's more crucial. These days, getting a beam maximum in the desired direction, people are able to get. Okay, but unwanted things are becoming more and more, as you can see in the air traffic control systems and all those places. Multiple locations, you don't want any radiations to take place. If you want to use the same resources, same frequency, same bandwidth and all those things, if you want to use for all the aircrafts that are going around an airport, then you have to be very careful with the null directions. That's how you have to think of better with a planar array. So planar array, when you go for it, you have more control in the horizontal plane as well as in the vertical plane. Theta and phi directions can be controlled here. Okay, and you have KDX and KDY domains. KDX means 2 pi by lambda times spacing between the elements in the x direction. KDY means 2 pi by lambda times spacing between the elements in the y direction. So both are the, in your K domain, it will be the x-axis and y-axis, and accordingly you have to draw the entire circle there and readjust the nulls there and get the inverse transform of that. Okay, once you adjust the nulls, take the product of all those things, z into z, z minus z1 into z minus z2 into z minus z3 type, whatever z transform type of designs you have done, we do the same things here. The z1, z2, z3, etc. will be the null locations on that unit circle what we try to do. Okay, product of n roots, if you take that, it will be the polynomial. That polynomial will give you the radiation point. That's how it goes. Nth order polynomial will have n roots. So n order roots, when you take nth order polynomial, you are going to get, and taking the transform of that, you will be getting the required input excitations one by one you are going to get. We need to generally write a program on those things and do it. That's what our experience used to be. Okay, so but Shilkunov's method as well as this were more convenient for that. So this is the case for a 21 by 21 array with beam maximum at 40 degrees and null at minus 60 degrees exactly coming up. So okay, see, minus 60 degrees location, you are going to have a null. At plus 40 degrees, you want to have a beam max. Both are easily controlled with these things. And using different algorithms, we tried with this. And this is the comparison what you can have with different elements, and what is the side lobe level you are going to get, what the beam width you are going to get. All these sort of things can be observed with a table that you can check it up later on. Different techniques we tried, and different types of arrays also we have tried. Linear array, circular array, planar array also we have tried, and got different designs for that. Okay, these are all the more or less conventional designs. And to improve the performance, we have also tried with kernel based LMS. So what is the standard LMS and what is kernel based LMS? You can see how the equations will get modified slightly, how the weights can be derived and all that. You can see the standard steps. This is a standard algorithm for kernel based LMS. It is available in all the textbooks. So we tried with that, and improvements in the kernel based LMS also we have got slightly better null depths and other things compared to LMS. Minus 41 dB, here the null depth is minus 65 dB. So you can see. Okay, so similarly for another set of antenna array also we have tried, and these are the convergence plots for normal LMS, normalized LMS, and kernel based LMS. So kernel based LMS is a red line which is continuously decreasing, whereas these ones have some fluctuations and other things. So within 10 iterations, we got the stabilized pattern, whatever we are looking for it with KLMS. Okay, whereas your normal LMS and other things were taking more than 20 iterations or 25 iterations to stabilize those things and get the required responses. Similarly, the simulation result for the output power versus number of iterations, when you check, the output power is much better for the red line graph, which is drawn due to KLMS. Okay, so this is the response function for various cases. Again, the red one is giving very precise nulls at the desired locations. Okay, so KLMS we found it to be very good, and Hilbert space is used for these things. Okay, and what is the LMS algorithm what we are trying to use? As I have shown you earlier also, the output is given to the LMS algorithm with reference, with a particular reference signal what you are looking for it, and the LMS algorithm will be worked out in a signal processing circuitry here, and the required outputs will be given to each individual element. Okay, so each individual element is getting this weightage, and adding all those things is what you are getting the output, which is continuously changed because of this feedback loop what we have put. Okay, so this is all the case. What we have done additionally is to speed up this operation, we added GA into this. That is what the novelty at Warangal what we tried, where LMS plus GA is the hybridization what we have tried. In genetic algorithm, I think many of you are very comfortable with it, or nobody knows about GA. I think I'm sure many people will be knowing.
Sir, today we learned.
Oh, GA is so new, is it? Very good, very good. So I can save my time. So GA, it is actually you are starting with multiple solutions into your search space. Okay, you assume multiple possible solutions and start working out whether it is a possible solution or not. And if it is having huge error with a desired value, then you are going to reject. If it is reasonably close, you are going to keep such possible solutions. Again, combine them to get new set of possible solutions. Again, try whether they are going to be fit or not. So the initially whatever you are trying, we call them as chromosomes. We randomly choose our possible solutions called chromosomes here, and evaluate whether it is a possible solution or not with the cost function or the minimization or maximization what you are supposed to do. And depending on the actual output what you are looking for and whatever output you have got through your trial, we take the error functions. Okay, and take the least minimum mean square error of all that, and try to see that the mean square error is reduced by changing the possible combinations. The inputs which are giving less error will be kept. The inputs which are giving higher errors are rejected, and in their place new possible inputs are generated, okay, from the available possible solutions. That is what the selection and crossover. What are the good inputs we try to keep. What are the bad inputs? We throw them out. That's what the selection process. Among the good inputs, we try to combine, mix and match and adjust this, that, and whatever you can do, you can think of. You will readjust those things and generate the new possible solutions. That's what we call as the crossover option. Then we try to slightly modify so that this crossover is also not a stereotype of crossover and all that. That is what is called a mutation. And then again try with the possible solutions of that. As you try these things hundreds of times, maybe 200 times, 500 times like that, you are definitely likely to reach the possible solution. So randomly you are going to start and reach the solution without much of a difficulty. So a lot of mathematics, what you have been doing in LMS, RLS, NLMS, etc., can be avoided. Even a normal layman can start these things. Okay, so instead of starting with random possible solutions, what we have tried is with LMS, we tried to come to a certain extent after doing some 3 or 5 iterations or so, and those outputs of the LMS are taken as the inputs for the GA and then completed the GA process to arrive at faster. So LMS and GA are mixed. First LMS we tried, got some output. Those LMS inputs are given as the inputs for the GA process. The genetic algorithm has been accelerated then the final design has been completed. That's how the hybridization has been done. So LMS by GA is one way what we tried. We tried the other way also. It was not giving that much comfortable for the particular problem what we tried. Okay. So with GA also you can start, come up to certain extent of possible solutions. Then you use LMS to get the output. In some other situations, it may be useful. For our case, as I told you, for a particular type of array to get unwanted directions, signal unwanted directions are 50 and 100, and desired direction is 150 degrees when we have taken up, which one variety what we tried used to give very good results. So the left-hand side diagram is exclusively for LMS case, whereas the right-hand side diagram is for the same array with the LMS and GA combination. What is important is more or less the maximum direction is fixed. Okay, at 150 both of them are giving without much of a difficulty, but the null locations are very precisely identified with LMS plus GA combination, right? So this is how the convergence plot has been going on with LMS alone and LMS plus GA. LMS plus GA at the bottom, only LMS at the top. You can see the variations are much less once it comes to a reasonable value. Okay, so this is the weight updating plot for the same cases of LMS or LMS plus GA. So weight updates are quite faster in this case, and the performance wise, you will not be able to see much difference in the main lobe for any of these algorithms. The hybridization and other things, whatever we do, is more predominant at the null locations. Minus 40, how it exactly it has come. Plus 20, whatever it has come. Plus 40, you can see a lot of change. So the unwanted signals, how far it is able to reject, the efficiency comes with your hybridization methods. That is what is the moral of the story. This is how the simulation results what we have got. So hybridization of LMS plus GA, you are able to see in these things. Okay. So what is the summary of this? A good adaptive behavior smart antenna can be designed with these things, and where exactly the nulls are, accordingly the old design is going to be modified. Whether you want LMS first or GA first, okay, where to switch over from LMS to GA, how to modify the GA policies, how to do the crossover, how to do the mutation, how to do the selection, all these things, there are no fixed rules, please remember. So you have a lot of liberty to choose all those things and arrive at the final solution. Whereas in LMS, in RLS and all those things, there are fixed methods you have to follow. If you deviate very much from that, you never know where you are going to reach. Whereas in GA or PSO or ant colony or something else, you will have a lot of flexibility to choose various operations and arrive at the final solution. Okay, these days when very good NIT professor is doing a lot of new algorithms. I think some of you might have heard. In NIT Surat, there is one Professor Venkatrao who has been giving algorithms and algorithms and algorithms. Every 2 months, he is coming out with new algorithms, and excellently they are working. So you can follow his lectures as well as his, I think he has given a book also to come out to identify new types of algorithms suitable for specifically for signal processing techniques. Okay, so this is something on that. Instead of GA, we also tried with several other methods. One of the modifications of GA people consider as the differential evolution. It is two operations of GA which are combined. Mutation and crossover are combined in the differential evolution process, and this is how we try to get a beam forming one, and very good inputs, very good responses we have got in these things. And this is the differential evolution algorithm what we tried. Okay, selection, recombination, mutation, all these things are put into one loop, and then we have gone for the final outputs of all these things together. That means crossover and mutation operations are done simultaneously in one operation itself, and got the new set of possible inputs faster than GA case what we have got, and this is how the response is found to be much better in this. So if a 20 element array with two undesired locations, very specifically we wanted, and very precisely the nulls have been identified by these things. Okay, so these are some of the results what we have got with DE case exclusively for this, and these are the tabulated results of some specific parameters in these cases. Okay, so all these results you can go through very carefully later on. These are only indications. In DE there are several strategies that are possible. How do you do the mutation, how do you do the crossover, how to change, what not to change, and all those things. So various combinations of those strategies we have got, and the responses are shown in these for various cases. Okay, again with LMS and DE combination we have tried, and we have got these some of the results. LMS plus DE. Earlier I have shown you LMS plus GA. So these are some of the hybridization methods, and this has gone for a paper in 2017. Okay, and how to reduce this number of iterations? There are many methods. The number of iterations can be reduced drastically by going for one particular technique called Taguchi method. Taguchi is one Japanese mathematician who has come out with some orthogonal array concept. So this orthogonal array concept is very much used in testing. Okay, many of you might be working with VLSI testing tools and all these sort of things, or some other testing methods you must be doing. How to minimize the number of test vectors, number of test inputs required to identify the faults in a system. If you want to identify, the orthogonal array concept is very much useful. Okay, and similarly your Sudoku, some of you must be playing on your apps and other places. Sudoku is also designed based on orthogonal array. How to give minimum number of inputs to get the complete 9 by 9 matrix filled, is it not? So with using those numbers you can develop other numbers. They will give some 30 numbers, you have to identify rest of the 51 numbers to get the 81 total 9 by 9 matrix. Or sometimes they may give only 22 or 24. Which 24 are to be given so that other things can be extracted by following the two rules and get all the 81 is the important. Similarly, in coding techniques, many of the communication people are using how to minimize the code length, but get useful information out of this code. Okay, so if there is any missing thing, how to fill it up at the receiving side. They use all these orthogonal array concepts very well, and using that orthogonal concept, we identified this Taguchi method that can be used along with GA to get the very good radiation pattern suitable for cosecant square. That means targets which are coming at constant height, we wanted to get this. So Taguchi method goes with orthogonal array, which has been developed based on these things. Number of factors, total number of runs, number of levels. You have to identify some 3 levels or 5 levels like that in general, and go for a run of those things and identify these numbers. There is a simple trick, but okay, and these are the basic equations for those things. Explaining that will take a bit of time, but This is the flow chart what we have followed for to get the orthogonal array concept first, and orthogonal array wise you have to identify the number of elements and then go for it. And this is the process that goes: problem initialization, design, conduct of experiments, like test wise, how many times you are going to test whether your trial inputs are giving the desired response or not. This is the trial wise you are going to see, and S by N ratio is the output one what we are trying to optimize in these cases. So this is how a 10 element array design has been done with side lobe levels and at the desired locations. The side lobes at the desired locations is very crucial part, and this is the convergence plot of the same thing, and this is how the weights have been updated in these cases. So these are some of the simulation results where to get the nulls at the desired locations, okay, is important in this. 81 degrees and 99 degrees, we want the prescribed nulls. 93 and 180 are another one. So 180 degrees, you have got this. 93, where is 93? Here 93, you have got a null. Okay, like this. 81 degrees, right? 81 degrees, you have a null here, and 99 degrees, you have a null here. So null depths are changing. How to adjust those things is very crucial in this. So like this, you have several results, and the important thing here comes up in this, right? So cosecant array pattern we have designed with Taguchi method. This is the mathematical model, and these are all the equations to get this cosecant square pattern. The cosecant square pattern is expected in the region of 97 to 120 degrees. In a normal case, 120 to 127 is a normal, 90 to 97 is also. In this manner, the output response function has to be like this. The output function is defined for specific locations, and this is what the response function has to be. It has to be constant without much of a problem anything. It has to continuously decrease like this between this angle to this angle. That's what is specified, and you have to get. This is very much suitable for constant height targets. Even the same thing is being practiced by mobile towers nowadays, because people with a constant height will also be moving in the same manner, and you want to get same level of signal whether the target is or the mobile is far off or close by. Okay. So this is how the fitness function is designed for this, and these are some of the simulation results with the 24 element array. So this exactly cosecant square you will never get. There will be minor variations, that is always possible, because it defies the causality conditions. Okay. So if you go back to your signal processing where the causal, non-causal and all those things, when you do, it will be very difficult to get it. You require large number of filter taps or large number of array elements to get very straightforward cosecant square in this case also. So this is how the weight updates are taken, and what are the magnitudes and what other things you can see. The convergence plot is excellently done in this case. So going for large number of iterations has no point. Within 2 or 3 iterations, if you go for orthogonal array and mix it with the GA, you get always very good advantage like this. Earlier, GA used to take 100 iterations, 200 iterations and all those things. But if you pay more attention towards the unnecessary experiments, what we are going to do, and reduce the number of experiments using Taguchi method, you will be able to get in 3 or 4 iterations very fast. That's the power. Okay, Taguchi is very much employed in many other fields also. Those of you who have simply employed normal GA, please try again with those techniques with Taguchi additional added concept. Okay, so this is about the Taguchi method implemented in GA, and these are some of the simulation results what we have. Okay, somebody is making noise. Please mute the mic. Okay, so these are all the things. And DOA based beamforming, that means you need to identify the angle. The angle information is contained in the phase of the received signal. Please remember, the angle information is very wide, because you can get the targets anywhere from 0 to 180 degrees or minus 90 to plus 90 degrees depending on the type of array. Okay, such a wide range of signals what you are getting. The The phase variation is very small, that's going to be there. Phase between the two received signals of two successive antenna elements will contain this. More number of antenna elements when you have to take each one of them as a pair and try to get the phase difference between those two things and get the angle information from each of those pairs and then take an average of all those things. That's how the angle information is taken as interferometry. That's what they call it. But angle information is very, very difficult in general. DOA estimation is not a simple job in physical world because the noise corrupts very easily your signals. Okay, so adaptive beam forming is done, and conventional methods are using the match filter, because first we minimize the noise, and from the signal we try to estimate the signal. Whatever we receive, the shape is not important. The phase information between two successive received signals is important. Okay, and the other one is MVDR algorithm, minimum variance distortionless response. The most popular one is the music algorithm, multiple signal classification, and the variation of that is ESPRIT, ESPRIT, estimation of signal parameters via rotational invariance. So in DOA, the important aspect, the output power in the conventional beamformer is this, and the output power is maximized when the response function of your filter is similar to the signal input. Is it not? That's the match filter. No, match filter signal function and the response function must be same. Is it not? That's how we are trying to take, and that's how we are able to avoid the noise. If the noise has the same spectrum as signal, what happens? Match filter is useless. Is it not? But never noise is same as signal. That's what the advantage we have. MVDR algorithm, it is also similar on the same lines you are going to have, and this is what the case is. And this is another type of antenna array, which is where the MVDR algorithm and match filter concept have been used, and we get the responses in this manner. Okay, music, I think many of you are using for the last 20-25 years, very, very popular algorithm, and hundreds of or thousands of papers have come with minor variations of these things by now. So multiple signal classification is done on this, and ESPRIT is also used, and adaptive beamforming we tried with constant modulus and linearly constrained minimum variance and multiple variations of all these other things. Okay, so these are some of the methods what we tried, and along with it we tried with PSO also. Okay, particle swarm, because we wanted to try different algorithms in different contexts, whether they are useful or what is what about it. So in PSA, you are going to use the antenna array factor as well as the error functions, whatever is possible at various locations, and trying to see that the error function is minimized. So as we know, PSO is developed by Eberhard in 1995, and you have P best and G best, global best and personal best. Is it? And it's a swarm of things that are going together. Swarm means similar items which are going in a group. Like all your students can be considered as a swarm, because you are all at the same level, same age level, same background, mathematical, physics, chemistry background, and all those things. And similarly, you are all moving towards your final year class. So each one you can consider. That's what I give the example in the class for the PSO. And this is the pseudocode available on the net. So these are all the some of the antenna patterns we have designed using this PSO along with other types of hybridizations. We have tried and we have got different outputs. As my time is coming up for question answers, I try to move fast. These slides you can have. But what I try to say is hybridization improves the signal processing capability drastically. That's what I want you to get convinced out of this. Thank you very much. Can I have some questions if you like?
Sir, I want to share one thing that you used LCMB. That LCMB used also in biomedical science in brain source localization. So maybe. I worked on that and I found that, sir, some method named ELORETA. So eLaureate actually works better in this scenario. That answer I want to share.
Maybe good. Thank you. Thank you for your information. My student, is a professor there now. Dr. A.P. Rao is very comfortable with this. If somebody has any questions, you can send me. I'll forward it to him. He must be working on those things. As a guide, I was just following what is happening and getting the information. Okay. Yeah.
Sir, this is a very nice and informative session, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions, please?
Sir, I have a. Actually, it was a very informative, sir. First and foremost,
Thank you.
and first thing is, I was wondering, like obtaining a radiation pattern, how to evaluate the weights. So it was such a good session from your side, sir. I got to know at a transmitting point of view what algorithms to be used to calculate the weights, and the receiving side what algorithms to be used. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the wonderful session, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, general questions or doubts if you can have, that will be doing it. And the thanks messages, it's okay. Okay, I can. Okay. Yeah, anybody specific doubts or questions? How many are there in the?
41, sir.
Yeah, good. So, if there are no other questions, I thank Dr. Kishore and the NIT team for giving me a chance to interact with you. And okay, happy sessions for you for the next 3-4 days. Even after on a holiday with a special purpose, you have come for this class. I'm very thankful to you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I request all the participants to turn on your mics and give a big round of applause as an appreciation to our expert speaker. Thank you so much, sir. Fine. So 3 sessions completed of today. Tomorrow morning, Professor T. Kishore Kumar sir, he is my supervisor. He will be taking a session sharp at 9 o'clock. And later on, IIIT Hyderabad Professor Lalita Madam, she will be taking sessions. So the schedule will be following as per the things that we have already fixed. So I sincerely request you to make use of the things. Okay, if you have any queries, you can post me personally or you can send me an email. Okay, thank you so much for showing interest and